Hi, everyone. Um, Today is Wednesday, December 3rd, and I am so sorry that we are not able to be together today. I am presenting at a conference across the country, and I tried very, very hard to avoid flights that interfered with our class time together, but I was unable to do so unless I wanted to spend over $1,000, which I very much did not. So I'm sorry that we won't be able to spend time together today, but I will see you next week, December 8th, at our final exam class. So this week focuses on equitable assessments. I am going to ask you to watch this video, this really, really short video, and then I'm going to ask you to complete an assignment within this slide deck so that you can earn your attendance point for this week. It's a really short assignment. So as part of this video presentation, I'm going to talk about some logistics. I will go over these ideas of equitable assessments, and then we will look ahead to December 8th. All right, so for logistics, as you already know, everything is due today, December 3rd. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to double check D2L. Like take a minute, pause this video, go into D2L right now. Your observation protocol. Is there a link to your observation protocol in D2L? Is that link current? I know some of you uploaded a link to your observation protocol back at the beginning of the semester. Like we had done that during one of our classes together. But then you added to a different protocol like throughout the semester. So just make sure that the link that is in D2L under the observation protocol assignment is your current observation protocol. It needs to be a link. In order to earn full credit for it, you must have 10 entries. You must include a description and reflection for each entry. I'm literally going to go through and count them. Observation, 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 description, 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 reflection, reflection for all 10 entries. And you'll get your full 15 points. Okay, so you checked that in D2L. Also, in D2L right now, check that your final lesson plan has been submitted as a link on D2L. I know that in D2L it says it needs to be uploaded as a document, but this is an error. I want it as a link. The reason why I want it as a link is because I want commenting privileges on it. This will allow me to read the 4 comments that you made back in class on the 19th of November. It will also allow me to respond to those comments. If you download it and then upload it, it will not preserve those comments, and I really want to see those comments. So D2L will force you to upload something. It will not let you turn in just the link. So upload whatever you want. It could be a picture of your dog. That's fine. I will not even look at what you uploaded. I don't care about it. What is most important is that you turn in this link. So take a second right now in D2L. Did you pause this video? Did you turn in the final lesson plan as a link? I also want you to take a second to double check Go React. So your recorded lesson plan is due today. Nothing needs to be turned in for this on D2L. You need to upload this video to Go React, and you need to leave 4 comments on it. The vocabulary segment, the cognitive strategy moment, a moment you asked a contestable question, and a moment you enacted one of your focal talk moves. If I see that you uploaded this to Go React, but you did not include the 4 comments, I will not grade it. I'll send you an email that's like, hey, I need these comments before I can grade it. So just make sure that if you've uploaded it to Go React already, those 4 comments are there. And I've even started grading some of y'all who have done that. Okay, so take a minute, pause this video, double check Go React. Did you upload your video? And did you leave 4 comments? I also want you to remind your mentor teacher. So they need to approve your hours. You will, maybe over the course of this week, want to send them an email, or if you're finishing up your placement hours and you're still planning to go in to your field placement site, remind your mentor teacher to go into SLNL and approve your hours. Don't feel like you're nagging them. Everyone is busy. We all need reminders. This will be helpful to them. It'll be a really quick thing for them, but please make sure they do that. Okay, let's jump into this week's topic, which is equitable assessments. as we are going through the slide deck today, there's just like 4 questions that I want you to kind of like store in your brain. And I want you to use these questions as like a lens for thinking about assessment, equitable assessment, as I guide you through this slide deck today. So one question I want you to be thinking about is what comprehension assessments you recall from your experiences as a K-12 student. Do you remember how your teachers use that data? Another question is, what comprehension assessments have you seen in your placements? Do you know how your mentor teachers are using that data? Another thing to think about is compared to the assessments that we talked about in TE 101, how are reading assessments different from other types of literate assessments? So think about how you had your students do like words their way assessments, how you had them do phonemic awareness assessments, the PSAT, how you had them do motivation assessments. How are those different from comprehension assessments? And then finally, why are they important? Are they important? Why are they important for teachers, for students, for families, for districts? So these are the questions that I want you to be sitting with and thinking with as we walk through the slide deck together today. So this is just a quick table. I literally pulled this from our Stahl and Garcia text, but this is on reading comprehension assessments. And these are 3 words that you as a teacher should know. You should know the difference between summative, interim, and formative. So a summative assessment is essentially a summary. Think summative and summary. It's a summary of students' performance according to standards and or compared to other students, but it usually happens at the end of the year because it is summative. And an interim assessment happens more frequently and usually at like the midpoint of like a unit or a midpoint of a semester, like it's like a checkpoint. And then finally, formative assessments. I always think of formative as being part of the word informative. Formative assessments are given throughout a class day, a class week, throughout a lesson, throughout a semester. They're given quite more frequently. And these specifically inform teachers' instruction. Something really important to note is how I've highlighted or put a box around the word classroom teachers here under formative assessment. The reason why I did that is because summative assessments are not for teachers. Interim assessments are not for teachers. Classroom teachers really only benefit from formative assessment. One thing that'll probably frustrate you as a classroom teacher, one thing that probably frustrates your mentor teacher is in this age of neoliberalism, we spend a ton of time assessing our students. We're giving summative assessments, national summative assessment, district summative assessments. We're giving interim assessments. We're assessing our students constantly. And none of this data is typically used to inform how we teach better. It's really just the formative assessment. So that's an issue that we'll talk about a little bit later today. But I want you guys to know these key words. These words will show up on your licensure exam. Like they'll probably ask you a question that's like, which of the following would be an example of a summative assessment? Or which of the following would be a way that teachers could use formative assessment to guide their instruction? They might ask you questions like that. So make sure you know the difference between these 3 terms. Saul Garcia also gave us things to think about when we're assessing. So we should be using multiple sources to understand students' specific needs and to consider reading in context. This is something I think about a lot as a teacher. Like, am I giving multiple ways for students to show me what they know? And am I giving them multiple modalities to do that, right? Given different students' like abilities and interests, am I giving them multiple ways to show me they can master whatever the standard is? It's also really important to use assessments to tailor your intervention groups. So you, especially as teachers of 3 through 6th grade students, are going to want to do small groups. So you should be using your assessment data to create these groups to ensure that students are getting support for what they need. We've also talked about this a little bit in class. I used to change my groups all the time because there shouldn't be a clearly low achieving group in your class and a clearly high achieving group. There might be a student that's in the lower achieving group one week when you're working on this vocabulary skill, but maybe the next week when you're doing public speaking skill, that student really shines and they're in the high achieving group, right? There shouldn't be static groups that are always your low achieving students and static groups are always your high achieving students. So the focus of intervention should always be to support students' reading comprehension and writing skills or strategies. We take an asset-oriented lens in this class, as you all know, and as you all have shown. But when you're in a small group, you're really not focusing on the students' assets, which are so many. Your students are going to have so many assets. We're not focusing on their assets. We're focusing on areas of growth. Think about if you like were a gym rat and you have like really big biceps, but like your core is really weak. If you just continue to like work on your biceps at the gym, your core isn't going to get better. And it's the same thing with small groups. Like we absolutely want students opportunities to flex their biceps, but if their core is struggling, we need to focus on that because that will help them holistically as a student. So small group assessments or assessments should be used to form intervention groups, and those intervention groups should be focusing on areas of growth that these we can specifically target. And then finally, this should inform your classroom instruction. Um, I I feel like we spend a lot of times in this program like focusing on like writing lesson plans, but the truth of the matter is every time you're getting data from your students, those lesson plans are shifting. And this is something that's challenging as a teacher, right? Like you're being responsive to student data, and so your lesson plans and your instruction is shifting depending on what your students are showing you that you need. Okay, so in a minute, as part of your like attendance assignment for the day, you are going to read a portion of this article. This article is called "They Always Keep Us in Line: Neoliberalism and Elementary Emergent Bilinguals." And I think this article is really cool because it contextualized some of the tensions of assessing equitably given this age of neoliberalism. So first, let's just remind ourselves what neoliberalism is. All of you that took TE 101 already know, right, what neoliberalism is. We did a whole week on this, but just as a reminder, so neoliberalism is an ideology. It's a set of policies that privilege market strategy over public institutions. They champion privatizing public services, which often leads to like the reduction in human wages, the destruction of unions, as we're seeing in our current administration, the destruction of public services, the elimination of FEMA, right? The federal emergency aid, the elimination of the Department of Ed. Oh my God. Yeah, so all this gets eliminated through neoliberalism because everything should be privatized. Neoliberalism defends the rights of individuals and uses this idea of mediocrity. Meritocracy. Why did I say it like that? Of meritocracy. So meritocracy assumes that everyone is working from an even playing field. We know that this is not true. But then it's saying everyone is starting from the same place, so we should just judge people on merit, and it completely disregards societal and systemic inequities. So within education, neoliberal policies challenge public schooling. We see this in things like vouchers. We see this with charter schools. We see this with other quasi-private schools that essentially privatize what used to be offered as like a public good or a public service. And then what this does is it pits the blame on individuals. So, kind of in line with meritocracy. Instead of blaming society or systemic issues when there are failings, it's saying, wait, we all started from the same playing field. So, if you're not achieving, that's a you problem, rather than accounting for, like, oh, yeah, your school didn't receive funding and there were no AP classes. So, of course, it was harder for you to get access to XYZ, right? So neoliberal policy has resulted in increasing accountability systems. This is why we see so much testing in schools today. They place blame and punishment on students and on teachers rather than inequitable school systems. Rather than improving quality of education, this vicious cycle creates cool climates characterized by compliance, conformity, and fear. This is a quote from Bree Pickauer's book from 2000 or article from 2011. And if you have not read anything by her, she has a book called Reading, Writing, and Racism that's amazing and I highly recommend. So Bree Pickauer, this is something from her article, but also she's just a tremendous author and does a lot of cool work on this. So why should we care about this as reading teachers? So what we're seeing with neoliberalism is that We have excessively narrowed the what is taught and how it is taught. So we're seeing that teachers are often doing test preparation and like teaching to the test. There was a recent online survey that noticed that 40% of teachers have increased the amount of time that they are spending on test prep, which means that they're abandoning student-centered instruction for test prep boot camp. I remember during my time in Texas, that we literally came back from spring break and abandoned everything and just did test prep for the STAR test, which is the statewide test in Texas. So, like, I've been part of districts where this is actually a thing. And these standardized assessments embrace a very narrow idea of what we count as literacy. So they prioritize functional literacy skills at the expense of emergent bilingual sociocultural learning needs. So instead of like saying, wow, like you're bringing all these linguistic assets into the classroom, they're saying, can you, like, they're assessing just very narrow slices of what it means to be literate. Um, Dr. Watson, who is a professor here at MSU, he and a colleague, Dr. Petroni, said that these assessments constrain rather than build with and expand use language and literacy practices. So they're decentering the students and they're devaluing students' funds of knowledge. We're also seeing that this drives a disconnect between students' personal lives and schools. No wonder then that we're seeing students not feel connected to schools, not wanting to be in schools, feeling disengaged, right? Like we've created this problem where students feel disengaged, and now we're blaming the teachers. That's not what's happening. So it's, yeah, anyway, so for us as reading teachers, neoliberalism is a huge problem, and we're seeing it affect our classrooms as a whole. In this article that you're going to read a section of, I just wanted you to have a good idea of who the participants were. So Hickey interviewed emergent bilinguals from various backgrounds. You can see that who the participants are here. You can see that there's students in first grade, third grade, fourth grade, and sixth grade. Okay, so this is how this work is going to get divided up. There are 4 slide decks or slides on slides 13, 14, 15, and 16. You each have been assigned to a slide deck. So Lydia, Sydney, Lily, Cece, and Kaylee, you are going to read the I think I'm going to fail section, A Culture of Assessment Accountability. That's on pages 23 through 27 in this link. Along with the link to this video, I'm including a link to this slide deck, so you'll be able to access this. Taylor, Sam, Piper, Ethan, and Lucy, you're going to read Sometimes They Give You a Lot of Work, Literary Experiences as Labor. That's on pages 27 through 29. Matt H., Kate, Madison, Ainsley, and Roxy, you're going to read Or You Go to the Wall, Conformity, Crime, and Punishment, and that's on pages 29 through 32. And finally, Matt N., Emma, Paige, Caitlin, Lillian, and Max, you guys are going to read It's All Fun, Immunity, and Joy in the First Grade. And that's on pages 33 through 35. So once you've read your section of the text, you are going to want to answer these questions. You can see that I've blocked out questions that you don't have to answer. So essentially, everyone is answering 3 questions. You can see on this slide, this is slide 13, which Lydia, Sydney, Lily, Cece, and Kaylee are going to populate. Lydia is only going to answer these 3 questions, whereas Sydney's going to answer these 3 questions here. Okay, you are editors on this slide deck. So once you've answered these questions, that counts as your attendance point for this week. All right, so that wraps up the content portion of this video. I quickly want to tell you what to expect looking ahead at the upcoming final exam. So the final exam is on Monday, December 8th. It is from 12:45 to 2:45, and it's in Erickson 107, which is our normal classroom that we normally meet in. There are attendance points with the fine associated with the final exam. You are required to be there. And here's what you can expect to do during the class. So there's 2 end of course surveys. One survey is given by the department, and it's not like super helpful to me because it doesn't ask you to share things that are like constructive necessarily. You still should fill it out because I still like want to know your feedback on that. Um, but I also will give you a survey that's based on prompts um, that ask you for like short answer responses that I think will better help me improve how I teach students like you in the future. So I would love it if you guys would like fill this out. Speaking of assessments, I like to be responsive to assessment data, so this will help me be responsive. The second thing we'll do is something involving a research opportunity. So my advisor, the person who created this class, her name is Dr. Shireen Aladimi. She's going to visit us. She's going to talk to you about about an opportunity. So we think that the work that you guys are doing, enacting dialogic instruction in your field placements is brilliant and beautiful and complex. And we would love to study your lesson plans and your recorded lessons. Dr. Aladimi will talk to y'all about that opportunity and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. Third, we will listen to two honors presentations from Lillian and Caitlin. And then finally, if you borrowed a library book for me, if you could bring them so I can collect them on the 8th, that would be great. So that wraps up all that I have for you guys today. As always, please feel free to reach out to me with any questions or concerns. Even though I'm across the country right now, I will be able to like respond to email and all that kind of things. And otherwise, I will see you guys on the 8th. Okay, everyone take care and stay warm. Bye.